for coming to this event as we announce this year's Martin Luther King Day of Service.
You know, what a wonderful community that we live in. And you can see, the sheriff just preliminary announced that we are now below 300 crimes per 10,000. And that was one of our goals. But you can't attribute that success to any one person or any one organization. The Sheriff's Department was instrumental, but it was the citizens that have pulled together that have made it a success to make this a safer community. And across the city, you can see community impact neighborhood programs, the churches getting together, community gardens. We have really pulled together. You know, Martin Luther King said, you know, that everyone can be great because everyone can serve. And in this community, we have a number of people that have served this community with their hearts. One is we have Marv Christ over here. You know, Marv, I don't know how many chairmanships do you hold of how many different nonprofit organizations. You know, I don't know how he has the time to do it all, but he dedicated to this community. But one man that I was very lucky to be able to work with when I first came on the council is Bishop Henry Hearns. Now, I have never met a man who is more giving and more dedicated to his community than Henry. And he was a joy to work with and an inspiration and a leader to me. And at this time, I'd like to invite him up. I think we have a little video presentation, so why don't you come up here, Henry, and we're going to watch it.
I'll take the highway straight up to heaven, and I won't stop till the good Lord lets me in. I'm leaving this old life behind me, and I'm so glad.
I really believe he was the guy that was truly set up, that could take the punches, and he had in him a spirit that drew people, not just black people. I think he was that guy that was set up by the Lord to be that person that would bring America to its senses.
But one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
A string of successes would follow Hearns through his 17-year career on the council, but one of his greatest civic achievements actually began nearly 2 years before his first election to office. Hearns established a commemorative celebration honoring his mentor, Martin Luther King Jr. He did this by lobbying the then mayor of Lancaster, Lynn Harrison.
So I came to Lynn and got an appointment with her and said, we would like to have a memorial services on the front lawn of the City Hall.
There was some reluctance in 1990, as you could expect, or at the beginning of that decade. So he simply asked, would you mind if I just gathered some people around the flagpole outside of City Hall, not even inside City Hall, so that we could celebrate this great man.
And we met out there, and I never will forget it. It was so cold you could see your breath and breathing.
And from that humble beginnings, he didn't complain, he didn't talk about, hey, we should do this in a different way. He just started it.
That was the very first one that we brought here to the city of Lancaster.
And he has been the driving force behind this program in this city for 2 decades.
Well, you know, but for Henry, I can assure you, MLK Day would not be a major celebration in this city. I mean, that was his idea and his recognition of why that was essential.
When I was elected as council, then I continued that program out in the yard. We then built the Performing Arts Theater, and I got approval from the council that we could bring the program to the Performing Arts Center.
Henry doesn't just stop at something, he improves it. So what started at a flagpole then was, why don't we do a celebration at the Performing Arts Center? Then it was, why don't we expand it to different venues? Then it was, let's make this a day of service.
And then the city, being like we are, progressive, And I still call myself a part of the council. I feel so honored and thankful with our present mayor and with the council.
What he has contributed to this city over the years is you could write a book about.
It's incredibly gratifying. When you watch people give, the people who give, who volunteer their time, they get more out of it, quite honestly, than the people who are being helped. And our city staff is really taking this on, led by our Parks, Recreation, and Arts Department, to make this an incredible event. And it's an award-winning event. He is truly a community leader, not just an African-American leader, not just any racial leader. He is a true leader of all people of the Antelope Valley.
Now Bishop Henry Hearns. We're not going to vote you off the aisle.
I am literally blown away. This is supposed to be a press conference, you all. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. And I don't look at this as something I've earned or deserved in any way at all. I live in the community, and you all have to forget the formality now on the form. I gotta say this, and then I can get into what I want to say to you this morning. But I just want to say to you that I'm glad to be a member of the Antelope Valley. And my children grew up here. They went to school here. My granddaughter now who went to Antelope Valley High School and now is a math teacher at Antelope Valley High School. And my daughters and everybody, man, I'm just glad to be here. And it has nothing to do with black. It has nothing to do with white. It's the Antelope Valley. It's Lancaster. And I happen to be living in Lancaster, so I want to build my community. So that's it. But I never look around to see who's counting or who's measuring or who's taking pictures. None of that never mattered to me. I just thank the Lord for the privilege. I get a chance to be a member of the community. And I had to say that, you all. So forgive me if I missed the script. That I had to say that. Let me give you just a little bit of what we want to do to make this announcement now. And hopefully you didn't have to record that part there. But let me say to my vice mayor, and you all know I'm very unorthodox, so this guy fills in all the spaces that my mayor doesn't fill, which is a lot of them. And he feels it very well, and he was very, very much my right and left arm while I was serving as the mayor in the city, and he was not intimidated by anybody, nor me or anyone else. So, Mr. Mayor, to my city manager, to the council member over here, I don't like him a lot, but he's all right. No, Marvin is a wonderful guy. So happy to see him be elected here. So to you all who are the officials here in the city of Lancaster, thank you for this privilege to be here. 601, oh, by the way, the wonderful pastors that are here that will be with us, and I'll talk about that as we make the presentation, but at 6:01 p.m., April the 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, a servant of America was struck down. Dr. Martin Luther King, a servant out trying to make the best for garbage workers, a servant, a true servant. And he didn't ask anybody to account for it. He just wanted to serve America. And it's all been said over there, and I don't know how to go through that. But Dr. Martin Luther King was absolutely, without a question, American servant. And he knew what America stood for. We recognize that there have been a lot of clenched fists by some of us. We recognize the fact that there's been a lot of ugly things said about America. We recognize the fact that much of it was true. but America is the greatest country on God's earth. There is no question about that. And he knew that America stood for something. So he stood for that and died for that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what it's all about. Then on April the 6th, 1968, which was 2 days later, across the street over here on 10th Street West, at the United Methodist Church, we held our first memorial services for Dr. Martin Luther King. We went from there to Edwards Air Force Base, and many of us were there, Pastor Ed Benson and many others who worked at Edwards at the time, and I believe Pastor might have been there too, Pastor Todd, who were working at Edwards Air Force Base, and we got together and put together memorial services after memorial services for Dr. Martin Luther King at Edwards Air Force Base. And then in 1988, I came to the then mayor of our city, Mayor Lynn Harrison, and said to her, we would like to have a meeting right out on the front line, not sponsored by the city, just we wanted to be allowed to have a memorial services on the front line out here on January 15th. And ladies and gentlemen, it was cold out there, but the city council allowed us to do that, and that was in '88. And then a few years later, after I was elected onto the council, I brought it to the council, and we somehow, it had then been made an official holiday in America for Dr. Martin Luther King, but it was left up to each city to select whether they would honor that day or not. I brought it to our council, and I invited all my pastor friends here, black, white, brown, or otherwise, and this place was jam-packed full of pastors and believers in the servicehood of Dr. Martin Luther King. And they were here. Our council agreed with that. And since then, the city of Lancaster has sponsored that. We started with that small group, and it grew and continued. And I think now 4 years ago, we had this to be a day of services where we actually joined with the pastors of the community and clean up various areas. And we look for the worst areas in our city and say, pastors, and if we call ourselves Christians, and I know I'm preaching a little bit here, and that's not what I'm supposed to do. I recognize all of that, but you all can edit out whatever you want to take out. But I'm a preacher, and that's that. You can't mess with that. But if you're going to call yourself a Christian, then you need to be a servant. You need to serve your community. And Pastor Chris Johnson, Pastor David Prather, David Parker, all of the pastors got together, and here we have now a day of services, and all of you are here today to witness that. Now, we went then this year. I'm excited because Mariposa area is going to be attacked. And I mean attacked. Pastor Chris Johnson is our leader for this year. He's going to be our president for our Ministers Alliance, and he's here with us this morning. And there'll be at least 500 of us out there of blacks, whites, browns, and guess what? People. We're going to be there to clean up those areas, to paint the areas, to do whatever is necessary to make those areas look good. And guess what? That's in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, who was an American servant. Now, following that, and I think I see in my notes here that we're going to be looking at probably 1,000 homes, right at 1,000 homes in that area that we will be looking at. Then following that, promptly at 11:30 a.m. that morning, we will meet at 555 West Lancaster Boulevard at the Old Museum, and there will be a ceremony for about 45 minutes honoring Dr. Martin Luther King and his servanthood and what he meant to us in terms of being a servant. Our guest speaker that day will be an old dude, older than me. When you get older than me, you're old. And his name is Levi Thornhill. Levi was one of the pilots that flew for the Tuskegee Airmen. And by the way, just outside of the museum is a tall bronze plaque put up for the Tuskegee Airmen by my city. My city agreed to do that, and I'm very proud of that. Not that I did it, but the city did it. If I didn't get 3 votes, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So we had 5 votes, and everybody said, yes, let's honor the Tuskegee Airmen. So Levi Thornhill will be there to speak on behalf of Dr. Martin Luther King and also to recognize the Tuskegee Airmen. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to shut up right here and let somebody else speak. But I do want to say to you, thank you for being here. We're looking forward to January 15th, 7 a.m. at Grace Chapel, which will be right down on 15th Street West between Lancaster Boulevard and Avenue J on the east side of 15th Street West. So we're looking for you there early that morning with your gloves on, paint clothes on, and that is going to be the same clothes that we're going to use to go to the ceremony. Do not think about going home to change clothes, to put on a tie. Bring your gloves, bring your boots, bring whatever you got, bring your children. It's all about representing what Dr. Martin Luther King represents, which is serving, painting houses, cleaning up areas, and smiling and telling people, God bless you. God bless you.
That's a real tough act to follow. Henry is very modest in what he's saying here. Here we are, 43 years that Henry's been doing this event, and I think the legacy that he's created is that it's sustainable. Now look at the people in the room, look at the people in the community. We have 1,000 people roughly on the day of service that come out and volunteer. That's a legacy to Bishop Henry Hearns. He's worn a number of different hats in our community. He's a war veteran, a bishop, city council member, a community activist, and he's the one that's really helped create this, keep it going, and now it's living with a lot of people that are investing time, effort, and making this a better community. And that's a tribute to you, Henry. Great job. I want to talk a little bit about some of the numbers. I've mentioned that. It's pretty impressive when you think of how many people. We went from a fairly small ceremony of a few hundred people to now over 1,000 people that come out to volunteer. And that grows every year. We'll have 20 projects that we're working on. There's a number of the projects and numbers that we'll have involved in this year's event. And that's really, truly remarkable because no matter the weather, we still get people coming out to help. Painting, doing different projects, feeding homeless, doing a number of different things, up to and including building bicycles for children so that needy children that don't get bikes have an opportunity to get a free bike based on the efforts of people that are doing this. And it really is remarkable. I mean, when you think about this, it is a broad spectrum of people that come from all over the community to do it. It really does reach out to a number of people. We help folks that can't make little basic improvements, rebuilding porches on their house, for an example. And that's something that this day of service has created. And people that maybe thought Martin Luther King's message wasn't for them are discovering that it was absolutely about them. Doesn't matter who you are, that message was very clear to all of us. So I want to make sure that we extend that invitation to people throughout our community, throughout the Antelope Valley, that would like to participate. They can come into City Hall, they can contact the Parks and Rec Department and get information on where they would report to help, to do events, to do the work. It's roughly 4 or 5 hours. Some of the projects will go as late as 4 p.m. in the afternoon, but most of them are about a half day. And then truly, the ceremony that'll take place at the Western Hotel is a chance to hear a little bit about history. The guest speaker that Henry has brought in is an amazing piece of history with the Tuskegee Airmen, and rarely do you get a chance to see somebody of that stature come in. And these are gentlemen that are getting up in age and not going to be around that much longer. So truly is a great thing. So if you get a chance, please, after you do some work, come over to that event and enjoy that part of it as well. I'd also like to recognize a couple of people that have put in a lot of work. Angela Riley from our department. She didn't want to come up here. She looks like she's ready to have her baby about any minute now. And so she's put in a lot of effort. Nicole Nutt, who is working with the computer over here and helping us, is Angela's assistant who has helped on it. A number of other people, Mike Rosa, who is the operations manager that oversees that section, and a number of other staff throughout City Hall that will help on this day. So with that, without further ado, I'd like to invite the Vice Mayor up for some closing remarks, and then we'll take some questions from the media if they have any.
You know, I was lucky enough to be involved with the Boy Scouts for years. My son, from the time he was a little Cub Scout through all the way through Eagle Scout. And the one thing that the Boy Scouts did on every step of the way was teach the young men to give back to the community and community service. All the way through Eagle Scout, you have to do a community service program. So what I'd like to do is invite the community, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all the different service clubs, all the different organizations that have something to contribute, and all our citizens to come to this day of service and contribute to their community. And so at this time, though, I would like to invite up our other special guest, Angela, and she's going to sing a song. And then when she's done, any of the press or anybody that has any questions can come and ask any of them. If they're really hard questions, you can ask Mark. So, Angela.
In honor of Martin Luther King and to my dad. You can spend your whole life building something from nothing. One storm can come, blow it all away, build it anyway. You can chase a dream that seems so out of reach and realize it may never